What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Ben on Sports. And as you can see, it is a NASCAR episode, meaning this is the weekly NASCAR preview series. And there's only three races left in this season: Talladega, Martinsville, and then the finale at Phoenix before NASCAR season is over and they decide a champion. So let's get into it. Storylines this week coming out of Vegas and into Talladega. Denny Hamlin gets win number 60, tying Kevin Harvick all time. An elite list to be on, in the top 10 in wins all time. The second most wins from an active driver, trailing only Kyle Busch. And with the way they've looked the last couple years, is there a chance Denny catches Kyle Busch? That's all I'm asking. Denny, with that win, locks himself in to the championship for the first time in the next-gen car. Can Denny Hamlin finally get the championship that has eluded him for what has otherwise been a pretty storied career? And speaking of that Las Vegas race, the top six cars, I'd say, the fastest six cars in that race, or at least six of the seven if you include Tyler Reddick at the top, were all playoff drivers, but not all of them got the finishes they deserved. Yeah, someone like Ryan Blaney, bad luck, in theory, they could have tire pressure adjustments or other adjustments that make that tire go flat, but it's always bad luck when you wreck out of a race early because of a flat tire. That's what happens to Blaney. He goes from second to eighth. Now, thankfully, for him, or not thankfully, but at least good news for him, he's really, really good at Talladega, really, really good at Martinsville, the two remaining tracks in the round of 8. But, man, how unfortunate for Ryan Blaney. Chase Elliott getting penalties on pit road. All kinds of things. William Byron getting wrecked in something that wasn't even his fault. And now William Byron goes below the cut line. Chase Elliott stays in 6th where he already was. Blaney falls below, and then Joey Logano still below the cut line, the same amount he was before the race. Denny Hamlin locking himself in, and then Kyle Larson with a good lead, as you'll see later, and then Bell and Briscoe in 3rd and 4th. Field has been sufficiently shaken up for where it was. Probably going to have a similar thing happen this weekend. But before I get into that, what happened with Ty Dillon? I've seen all kinds of stuff. I've watched spotter audio. It's not just Ty Dillon. It almost happened with some other drivers, in my opinion. But to have William Byron, who had a chance to win that race, get wrecked and go from quite comfortably above the cut line to 15 points below is really sad. Somebody has to communicate. I understand that there's a conversation about, did the spotter share it with William Byron's team? Were the spotters communicating? I don't think it matters. I think at the end of the day, every driver owes the courtesy to another driver to put your hand out the window and let them know you're coming down. And maybe Ty Dillon did. I never saw it on the in-car when I went back and watched them. But that cannot happen. The spotter for Ty Dillon, the 10 team, is obviously fired now. William Byron did absolutely nothing wrong. His team brought more speed than they had most of the second half of the season and was one of the best cars on the day. They showed up when it counted. And you know what? It didn't matter because of a non-playoff driver's mistake that I haven't seen happen something like that in a while. No excuse for it. I digress. Really ridiculous set of circumstances, in my opinion. And probably why the playoff format should change, because it's not fair that William Byron is below the cut line now, in my opinion. Who survives the craziness of a drafting track this week? And everybody knows how drafting track goes. Everybody knows how Talladega goes. Anybody can win. Anybody can get wrecked. There's usually one, if not two, big wrecks. There's probably going to be 1, 2, maybe even 3 playoff drivers wrecked out of this race and going to be hurting for points going into Martinsville. And there's probably going to be some playoff drivers that manage to have really good days. Maybe even somebody wins. As crazy as Vegas was in some circumstances, Talladega could be even crazier, which is why it pays to be Denny Hamlin, and you're advancing to the championship. The other 7 drivers don't have that luxury. And yes, that's kind of the main point right now, right? Just the round of 8 is crazy just because of Talladega. Some drivers are going to come into this week looking really good above the cut line. Some drivers are going to come in looking bad below the cut line. And at the end of the day, everybody could get switched up except for Denny Hamlin. Just big wrecks. Everybody's running so close together. It just takes one mistake from somebody to ruin 20 other drivers' days. Can someone from below the cut line punch their ticket? Arguably, four of the best super speedway racers are below the cut line, which could add into the chaos. I would argue of the seven drivers not locked into the next round, the four of the remaining seven that are best on super speedways are below the cut line, and the three that are the worst of the group are above the cut line, which even adds to the fact that this could get crazy. William Byron has been the best driver at drafting tracks in the next gen era. He's below the cut line. Blaney has won this race before and has probably been the second best drafting track driver in next gen. He's below the cut line. Logano hasn't gotten the finishes, but Team Penske's always really, really good on drafting tracks. His teammates have wins on drafting tracks at Talladega in the next gen, and Logano will run up front and get points. He just can't get the finishes. Maybe Logano finally gets the finishes, and then Chase Elliott has won some drafting tracks, and Chase Elliott's usually pretty good at Talladega, and those are the four guys below the cut line. So I think there's a very likely scenario where one of the four playoff drivers in all of this craziness that is below the cut line finds a way to win themselves into the next round. Also, this race has a history of having people enter below the cut line and making up massive point differentials or getting massive point swings above. It happened last year with three drivers. Can it happen this year? I think at least one driver, absolutely it does. Another thing I want to point out, Shane Van Gisbergen, until late in the race, was super fast, had top 10 speed, obviously got spun in that restart melee, but the last 2.5 mile intermediates, Kansas and Vegas, SVGs looked good on the oval. I still think short tracks or some other things maybe not be a strength, but I think there's some ovals where SVG is getting faster and starting to figure it out. And that could be dangerous for the rest of the field with how dominant he is at the road courses. If he can add a couple of ovals, he could be a real threat. And NASCAR 25, the video game is out. I'm seeing it all over social media. It really looks like it is doing positive things for NASCAR. People that aren't even NASCAR fans are finding the game, thinking it's fun. Maybe that leads to an increase in viewership. Do not underestimate the power that video games can have on a professional sport product. The game looks really good. It looks like it's only going to get better. It's made by iRacing. Everybody knows how good iRacing is. I think it's going to be a very good and positive thing for NASCAR in the future as the sport continues to move forward. Enough of those storylines. Let's get into the history at Talladega. Recent winners, all the winners in the next gen era: Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, who's below the cut line, Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, who's below the cut line, Tyler Reddick, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Austin Cindric have been the 7 winners at Talladega. Let's not forget, in 2023, Ryan Blaney won this race on his way to winning the championship. Maybe that happens again. Best average finish, 4 Hendrick drivers are 1, 2, 3, and 4. Byron with 7, Chase Elliott at 10.9, Alex Bowman at 13, Kyle Larson at 13.9, Eric Jones at 14.6. And the reason why Chandler Smith he has 1 start, so he has 1 11th place finish. That's not enough for me to consider you somewhere when there's been 7 races out of place, but I figured I would mention it because technically he would have the 3rd best, but again, only 1 race. And you think Ford and Ford's prowess on super speedways, and for fair reason, but Chevy has won over half the races at Talladega in the next gen, and they have the 4 best average finishes in the next gen era, all with Hendrick Motorsports. So maybe Chevy is better on this course, at least as of late, than Ford is. Most top 5s, 4 drivers tied with 3: William Byron, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, Brad Keselowski. And then 7 drivers tied at 2 top 5s: Chase Elliott, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Denny Hamlin, Austin Cindric, Noah Gragson, Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain. Most top 10s in the next gen era at Talladega: William Byron all by himself in 5th, and he's 15 points below the cut line, so he would love another day like that. 3 drivers tied at 4: Chase Elliott, Eric Jones, Daniel Suarez. 8 drivers tied at 3: Alex Bowman, Kyle Larson, Todd Gilliland, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Austin Cindric, Brad Keselowski, and Austin Dillon. So, some pretty common names, some names you maybe don't see as much. But there is some playoff drivers that you see their name a lot. That's why I say nobody's out of this on the points yet, especially because somebody's going to get wrecked out of this. That's a playoff driver. Favorites to win Talladega team rankings here. Normally, I'd have a Ford team first, but Hendrick Motorsports is the top 4 average finishes, and they have won here. They've won on drafting tracks. Give me Hendrick Motorsports as a favorite. They seem to have figured out this type of racing. Team Penske's always good. It wouldn't surprise me if all 3 of their cars qualify in the top 5 this weekend. A lot has been said about Ford and Team Penske on drafting tracks. RFK has been really, really good, even if you don't see their name up there a lot. Keselowski knows how to get it done on drafting tracks. Buescher has a drafting track win. Priest this season especially has been up front a lot on drafting tracks. I wouldn't be shocked if RFK is fast. 23XI, Toyota doesn't have a win at Talladega, the only manufacturer not to, but I still have 2 Toyota cars, or 2 Toyota teams here. 23, or that's not true. They have 1 win because Tyler Reddick won last year. So 23XI has a win at Talladega. Bubba Wallace is always up front and always a good super speedway racer. I think 23XI could be fast. And Joe Gibbs, hasn't, at least in my opinion, in the next gen, they haven't had the same success that they did in previously on drafting tracks. But I still think with it being the playoffs, they're going to bring speed. I still think Joe Gibbs can win this race. I think Denny Hamlin will be able to push, right? You think about it, Denny Hamlin's already won, and if it's coming down late and Christopher Bell and or Chase Briscoe are in front of him, his 2 teammates that haven't locked themselves into the next round, but in the playoffs, he's probably just going to push them, right? Like you would think that's what's going to happen. I've seen it happen before with other teams. Denny Hamlin is usually fast on these tracks. Christopher Bell has won a drafting track. He's had good days. Briscoe has some top 5s and top 10s at Talladega, albeit in a Ford, and he has had speed at some of the drafting tracks this year. So I think Joe Gibbs, because they have to, will show up this week, and they kind of have that Denny Hamlin being willing to push other drivers' advantage. Driver rankings, I think William Byron, after last week, is going to come in with a point to prove this week. Again, multiple Daytona 500s, multiple drafting track wins for Byron. No reason that he won't, and has the best average finish at Talladega. No reason to expect that won't be the same. Chase Elliott, for very similar reasons, has a win at Talladega, a good drafting track driver who also needs, if not a win, needs to start collecting a lot of points on the cut line. I think Chase Elliott shows up this weekend. Ryan Blaney, Austin Cindric, and Joey Logano, the 3 Penske Motorsports cars, 2 of which are below the cut line, 1 of which is already eliminated from the playoffs. They lead a lot of laps on these tracks. They get a lot of stage points. The question for me is, can they lead that final lap? And if they do, it most likely will lead to at least 1 person going to the championship 4. Alex Bowman, I don't think gets enough love for how good of a super speedway racer he is. He's been good at Talladega. He's been good at this track. He usually finds himself up front at the end of a lot of these races. I think Alex Bowman could be a threat this week. Bubba Wallace, I already mentioned him, does have a career win in Talladega, just not in the next-gen car. He's usually fast and likes to be out front at these races. I think that continues this week. Brad Kay is in one of the longer drafting track winless droughts of his career. He knows how to get it done on drafting tracks, hasn't done it in a while, has had a rough season. RFK didn't get any playoff drivers despite being the best team probably that didn't make it. They've been the best non-playoff team of the playoffs. I think Brad Keselowski and his teammate Chris Buescher arrive with a point to prove, both of them wanting to get a win. Both of them won races last year. Neither one of them have won a race this year. I think they could be really fast. And then Denny Hamlin has nothing to lose. He already has a win. If he finds out if he needs to make a strategy call to get up front, he can without fear of consequence. I just think there's a lot of pressure off. And Denny Hamlin, don't forget, he's won the Daytona 500 3 times. He was in position to potentially win it this year. He knows how to race these type of racetracks, and I think he can find himself towards the front. And again, maybe if he has another Toyota up there, he'll be pushing him to victory. But I also think it's likely that maybe there's not another Toyota up there, and Denny's like, let's go win another race. These are my favorites to win Talladega for both team and drivers. Let me know in the comments who you think is the favorite to win this week. Current playoff standings, Denny Hamlin obviously locked himself in. Kyle Larson, 35 points to the good. Probably might have been the best car last week. Toyotas were just a little bit better on the short run, and a late caution that took him out of it. Christopher Bell at plus 20, his teammate Chase Briscoe at plus 15. And if you are Joe Gibbs Racing, you would love it if nothing changes and this happens, right? Joe Gibbs Racing having 3 of the final 4 drivers. It would be Kyle Larson against JGR essentially for the championship. I think it's unlikely that that happens with 2 races left. But it was a good day at Vegas for Joe Gibbs Racing. Can Chase Briscoe and Christopher Bell, can one of them win to lock themselves in, or can they keep a points cushion, because both of them should be good at Martinsville? So can Bell and Briscoe keep this points advantage over these 4 drivers who all are very good at Talladega? Byron minus 15, Elliott minus 23. Joey Logano entered Vegas at minus 24, leaves at minus 24, and Ryan Blaney, obviously, with that last place finish after crashing out at minus 31. Blaney's probably thinking he needs a win in one of these 2 races, and maybe all of these guys are. But with the craziness of Talladega, it's not crazy to think you could have a 30, 40-point swing on the cut line, and for any of those drivers, that means it's still in play. I don't think anybody is in a must-win scenario just because of the craziness of Talladega. I definitely see 1, if not 2, of the people above the cut line potentially being below the cut line at the end of this race, whether it's somebody winning below the cut line or just all out wrecking and craziness. And I definitely expect at least one driver to be in a very much so a must-win situation too far back to point their way in. It's just how Talladega works. There's always big wrecks. It's hard to avoid them. I think it's going to come down to who can qualify well and get stage points. And that would be my goal if I was a lot of these playoff drivers. Because if you're fast enough to get stage points, you'll probably be fast enough to be there in the end. In my current playoff driver power rankings, Denny Hamlin after the win, it goes to 1. There's no better spot to be than locked in. Kyle Larson goes to 2 after a solid day. Bell had a good day, finishes third in playoff standings. Briscoe is in 4th. He stayed in 4th. Could have had a better day. I thought for a minute he might have even won the race while Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson were fighting on 4 tires, him only being on 2. But eventually they got it straightened out, and Briscoe finishes 4th. But he went from minus 14 to plus 15. Obviously some help with some wrecks and guys having trouble. Still in 4th for Briscoe. Byron had a lot of speed and would have been higher on this list if Ty Dillon did not take him out inexplicably. So William Byron is at 5. Had speed though, moving into a track Byron really, I think, a track type at least that William Byron really likes. Chase Elliott in 6 after a rough week, but again another track he likes. And same thing for Blaney and Logano. The only reason Blaney went from 1st in my power rankings to 7th, I didn't feel like it was right to drop him to last. Especially going into a track type that he likes. It's funny, I really do think the four drivers with the best chance to win and collect a whole bunch of points in this race are the drivers below the cut line, which are 5, 6, 7, and 8 here. And I think the 4 drivers that, well, Denny Hamlin's already locked in, but he'll be okay. And then 2, 3, and 4, I don't think are bad necessarily super speedways, but I don't think they're as good as the 4 drivers behind them. So I think this could get really, really interesting just based on that prediction. Let me know if you think I'm on base there. Let me know who you think are the favorites to win in the comments, and let me know if you are changing your picks about who is advancing and who isn't advancing in the comments below. Please, please, please like, comment, and subscribe. As always, let me know if you guys like this a little bit of a shorter episode. It should be 5 to 10 minutes shorter here. Let me know if you like that. Follow me over on X. I might talk about the race. Who knows? I probably will most definitely be talking about all the football happening this week. Maybe even some hockey. Even NBA preseason is here. College basketball scrimmages are back. If you guys were here last year, this time of year ago, you know how much I love college basketball. So obviously, there will be some college basketball talk coming. Baseball playoffs are still going on, so find a couch. Plenty of sports action. We're essentially right around that sports eclipse time of year. Just need the NBA to tip off, but really it kind of has preseason games. So I say all that to say plenty of sports on. This is the best time of the year for sports now until Christmas, in my opinion. Really a lot of good stuff going on. Find a couch, get comfortable, watch some sports. Thank you for taking time out of your days, your weeks, and your lives for listening to this episode. Stay safe. It's a crazy world out there. Peace out.